Okay, well, thanks very much for having me on your show. I hope that I can provide some information that everybody can use. We're going to talk about the defending sweeps, which I use the method of spill and kill. There are several ways of defending sweeps, but we're just going to go into that particular method in this presentation. And I'll be watching for people asking questions at the bottom of my screen, so I can respond at any time to questions that come up. I won't be reading what you see on the screen because that's kind of repeat material. So might say something completely different from what you're reading as the slides come up. So we'll start with the first slide here, which of course is what is spill and kill. Well, spill and kill, the idea of defending a sweep is to deny a runner space, and you can do that one of two ways. You can either the key thing is that when you're defending space on a sweep is that the sideline marks where open space ends. And so we've got two ways of controlling where the open space ends. One is to run into the sideline let the runner run into the sideline and where he runs out of open space, and the other is to bring a boxing defensive end upfield and let him run out of open space by running into that boxing defensive end, into that player. We're going to talk about running the player into the sideline instead of running him into another player. So now we'll go to the next slide. And of course, boxing, of course, is when you bring the sideline closer to the runner, because the boxing defensive end actually becomes the new sideline, because he's going to stop that runner from going any further outside. So now if you have questions on any of these slides, I'll watch for them and see if any show up. Otherwise, I'll continue on to the next slide, and since no one's asking, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, why do we teach it? Well, I like to teach it because if you're going to bring the runner closer to the sideline versus bring the sideline closer to the runner, which is what boxing does, bring the sideline closer to the runner. If you bring the runner closer to the sideline and use the sideline as the boxing defensive end, you just save yourself the use of one player. And since there's two players on each side of the defense that are performing this task, you basically gain yourself two players that you can use for something else if you use spill and kill versus boxing defensive ends. What we're going to use those two players for is to actually tackle the runner for a loss. So again, I will watch for questions, see if anyone is showing up. And again, I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, this of course is an example of a boxing defensive end, and I drew it up against a double wing offense, because double wing offenses are basically, like single wing offenses, are just to be designed to attack defenses that use boxing defensive ends. So I thought this was the best example to use. You can see that fullback kicking that defensive end out, and they're going to run that play inside him, and the off tackle play is very popular against a boxing defensive end, and that's one of the things we want to make certain doesn't happen when we create any defense. We don't want to give this play up, which is what a boxing defensive end does give up, and we want to avoid that. So we want to avoid the off tackle play, and we want to tackle that sweep for a loss. Now, I'm going to talk about stuff that's specific to what I do. And of course, I coach DC 46 and the Killer Bee defense. As I mentioned before, there are other ways to defend sweep. There's cloud coverage, sky coverage, and Killer Bee uses both of those as well as spill and kill. But you're not limited to just what I'm going to present. And once again, looking for questions, and I'm not seeing any pop up, so we'll go to the next slide.